Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Hope you are enjoying your day. Thank you for everybody. Thank you to everybody for joining us live. And if you are watching this on the recording, hope you're doing great. And thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to pop me on and take a listen. We're going to be talking about, again, how to build empathy in the sales relationship and the how to be a sales Sherpa. Because I think right now we are not in a time where empathy is more important. I think we're rather in a time where the importance of empathy is being highlighted. I think there's a big mistake out there that thinks, oh, now we have to be empathetic with our prospects, with our customers, our clients, our colleagues. No, we should have always been empathetic. And now we're just seeing a gap when there is no empathy. So thank you very much for joining us. Adam, good to see you. I know we'll have lots of people jumping in and off as we go through the next 20 minutes or so. The comment section is working. So if you are joining us live, feel free to throw some comments in there. If you have any questions, definitely throw those in there as well. I can address those on the fly. And we are going to be putting all of the episodes this week. They're on our YouTube channel. We do have a playlist that we create every week for the various topics that you can find right on our YouTube channel. And so if you want to see what we did yesterday, if you miss any of the ones that are coming up later this week, those are always available. If you need the link to that, feel free to just shoot me a message afterwards. I'm happy to share that link with you. Hey, Jennifer, good morning. Good to talk. We talked 20 minutes ago, and good to see you here as well. So I am fired up about this topic. It's something I've been passionate about. I've been talking about it actually for the last couple of years, especially because I also talk a lot about how to sell in the digital space, how to use LinkedIn, a lot of the digital tools that we have available to us to stay in touch with people. And I don't think that talking about empathy and talking about digital tools are contradictory. I think in the end, they're all about how do we build a better relationship with our prospects, our customers, with the people that we're trying to serve. And today I want to talk about some very practical ways that you can build empathy within a conversation. Tomorrow, we're going to look at how to actually build the empathy muscle, how to build that skill. Today, we're going to talk about things that you can start doing right away today when you're having conversations with your prospects and with your customers to have better conversations, to create better results. Because as somebody mentioned yesterday and really pointed this out, building empathy is just kind of the modern interpretation of building know, like, and trust, which is kind of the old school sales adage. People, all things being equal, prefer to do business with those they know, like, and trust. And really, when we think about building empathy, we're looking at building that know, like, and trust. So really what we're talking about today are skills that you can use in a conversation to build know, like, and trust. So let's go through those. I've got about 6 or 7. We're going to kind of go through them rapid fire. Again, if you have specific questions, feel free to jot those in the comments or hit me up afterwards. Happy to answer any questions that you have. So number 1, get face-to-face. So a really important part of building empathy is actually our ability to see someone's face and to see the expressions and the facial reactions that somebody has as we engage with them and we converse with them. There is a really interesting study. This was brought to my attention when I was reading Jeff Colvin's book, Humans Are Underrated, which is a fantastic book. It is not underrated. It is an amazing read. I highly suggest it. But there is some research done that showed that having people face-to-face really improved their ability to connect, like in person. If they put those people back-to-back, a lot of those benefits disappeared. What was really they still had the ability to recognize tone in the voice, and that's really important. But if they weren't face-to-face, they lost the ability to see and to connect with each other on a visual level. That's really important. So one of the things you can do is make sure that you are seeing people face-to-face. Now, before all of this physical distancing and after this is done, we'll be able to get back to in-person. That's why so many people are like, I really like an in-person meeting, because it allows us to see the facial expressions, to really connect. We didn't have that, of course, on the phone, but we do have that now in video calls. That's why right now I'm really suggesting to people, when in doubt, get off the phone whenever possible and get into a Zoom meeting or a Google Hangouts. That is so important right now, but it has been important. It's going to continue to be important. If you have the chance, get to that face-to-face interaction. Super important. Okay, because again, there's a lot of messages that we send that we don't even know we're sending. There's things called micro expressions, where our face goes through very tiny emotional kind of cues when we're talking with somebody, and it's so fast that you can't consciously see it in somebody else, but unconsciously our brains are wired to pick it up. That's why I have these huge brains, so that we can engage with each other. So that's the first idea. Get face-to-face whenever possible. Number 2, study. Now, I guess this is kind of something that happens before the conversation, but I think it's still really important to do. Whether it's talking to prospects, whether it's talking to existing customers, really anybody, anything you can do to study their situation before you have a conversation is important. So think about your ideal type of client or customer that you're working with. The more you can understand their world, the better, okay? And so that could be as simple as doing some industry research, paying attention to what's happening in the news in their vertical, again, the things that they're looking at. It could also be just learning about the type of person that they are, or the kind of like the typical prospect or customer that you have is, and figure out what's important to them. That's really relevant if they're different than you. That's why it's kind of easy to sell to a demographic that is similar to you. You have a shared outlook that you can kind of rest upon. But I'll give you an example. When I got my start in my career, I taught college kids how to sell kitchen knives at Cutco Cutlery. And as you can imagine, the audience for kitchen cutlery there was not college students, right? It was obviously married families who are doing a lot of cooking, had a household. So one of the really important things for me to do when training new representatives was actually to help them walk through what was important to their prospects, in this case, to a married couple. What did they value? What were the challenges that they were facing? Because they were very different, obviously, than what a college student would think is important. And so we had to go through that process. In the same way, go, hey, is there a type of customer that I'm working with that is different than me? Do I really know what's important to them? Again, you can do some research there, or you can even just talk to some of your customers and be like, somebody that you know well, you've built a relationship with, go, hey, what are the things that you're working on? Like when you think about going through your career, if you're in the C-suite, if you're selling to the C-suite and you're 28 and just getting started in your career, find somebody who will, be straightforward with you and say, hey, this is the way that somebody in the C-suite views the world. So the more you can study about where the other person is coming from, the better. So the third idea, small talk. Before you dive into business, you should always have at least a short engagement with a person in the realm of small talk. And I hate the term small talk. There's no small talk. There's only small people. But what small talk really is it's the grease to the conversation. You don't have to spend forever doing this. But if you just want to dive right into a conversation, you haven't warmed up the conversation, right? You haven't, greased the axle, so to speak. So even just saying, hey, how are you doing? Checking in with somebody's emotional space. You're actually going to get a lot of information if you pay attention during that small talk. Just, and this depends on how well you know the person, what level you're at. If they're just a prospect you're talking to the first time versus somebody you maybe have had a few interactions with. But hey, how's it going? How are you doing? How was the weekend? Hope things are good. These little things, like I'm not saying to talk about the weather, but at least gauge where they're at. Obviously, right now, one of the things that, even though we're talking about small talk, it's not small, is the context of coronavirus and the pandemic that's happening, right? I mean, one of the worst things you can do is be like, I'm going to ignore that and just talk right about business. No, address it, bring it up. It doesn't mean you have to dwell on it. And again, small talk doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of time, but get that foundation there. What also is great here is that sometimes that small talk is going to open up a much larger vista for the conversation. And I learned this actually once in the beginning of my sales career. I was selling Cutco. This is when I was still a sales rep. I was brand new, didn't have a lot of people that I could go and call and practice with. I was calling the alumni from Northwestern University, where I was in school at the time, here in the Evanston area, saying, hey, can you help me out? This one woman said, sure, come on over. I know I'm in sales too. I get it. I'm not going to buy anything. Hey, I'm probably not going to refer you to anybody, but I'll let you practice the pitch and give you some feedback. It's like, great. That's all I needed. Her name is Melanie. She, to this day, over 20 years later, still a friend of mine, still lives in the neighborhood. She actually just came and made a beautiful quilt for my son, which was great. She was able to drop it off before all this happened. And one of the things that helped is we sat down, and I was in a band at the time. She was huge in the music scene in Chicago. This is the late 90s. We started talking about bands that we knew. And she ended up buying some cutlery that day. She ended up giving me some referrals. And obviously there was a friendship that started there. But it was because I was okay with having that human conversation. So don't force that. But if you're open to it, right, and you're open to actually digging below just the business, some really impressive things happen. Okay, the next one, I think we're on 4. Well, we'll say it's 4. Ask questions about their inner world, right? So we talked yesterday in session 1 about the fact that empathy is based on this theory of mind, which is basically understanding that other people have emotions, they have agendas, they have perspectives that are different than yours, and you can address those. Well, if you want to check in with that inner world that they have, ask them questions. Now, this isn't a therapy session. You don't want to like ask a prospect, so how do you feel about that? You know, what do you think your mother would say about this? Right? Not at all. But you can ask something like, hey, how would this impact your future earnings? Or what kind of impact would this decision have on your position in the company? You know, would this make your planning for the future better or worse? You could say, you know, if we were able to increase your return on X, or if we were able to, you know, increase the productivity here, if we were able to, you know, maximize the opportunity with this, how would you feel about that? Right? And that doesn't feel a question. You're saying how you feel, but you're not, again, trying to get into their deep emotional sense. You're trying to get them to go, hey, that would actually make my life a lot easier, right? Interesting. Like that is about emotion. So, okay, we know something about this person now, right? And by the way, one thing I hope you're realizing as we go through this, there's no rocket science here. This is stuff that you do naturally and normally. And what we're doing is being intentional and kind of bringing this into the professional space. And I guess my point is that you can treat professional conversations like human conversations. I know that sounds really basic and common sense, but it must not be common sense because most people don't do it, right? So again, even in just asking, hey, how you feel? What do you think about that? You know, the whole point is you're pausing and letting them share what their, again, inner world is going on. Sorry, Adam. Great question, Adam, asking about when you're keeping in touch with people, and is it better through phone and video conversations, emails, printed greeting cards? Like, what's the best way to continue to express empathy in follow-up? So the first thing I would say is any kind of follow-up is good. A lot of times we just drop the ball and don't follow up at all. A couple of things that I think were good. Again, whenever you can get a video conversation, that's the best. That's actually why, you know, once we get past the self-quarantining, that's why events are great, like larger events. I don't think they're great for necessarily building relationships, but they're great for maintaining, right? It's the C and B scene. You know, there's different organizations over the years that, you know, I got to know people really well in them, but I would keep going to that monthly happy hour, for example, because I want to say, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Just kind of reestablish that empathetic bond. even just sending a handwritten note can be really powerful, even though there's not in your face, like that's tactile. People can really value that. So I think those are some of the good things. Again, sending an email, not bad. I send e-newsletters out every week. Make sure you're on the list if you're not. I think they're good, but those, they're definitely not as valuable as a card. They're not as valuable as a phone call. Then, a video call, same in person. I mean, there's a hierarchy, but really any touch points are going to be better than no touch points at all. So really good question there. So 4 was asking questions about their inner world. Number 5, listen. Oh my goodness, listen. There's so many articles and videos about the power of listening, active listening. I don't care what you want to call it, but just pay attention to them. The biggest mistake that salespeople make is they ask a question. They don't care what the prospect is going to say because they already have their canned response. Man, it's a tough habit to get out of. And this is where I think scripting can be bad. Like, I think it's good to have a script that you're kind of following. But if there's a question in your sales process, ask a question and shut up and listen. See what they're saying. Sometimes they're going to give you not much information, but sometimes they'll give you a ton. So you have to listen. And this gets to number, I think, 6, pause. If you can learn to pause in your conversations. Now, the way that I speak in these LinkedIn Lives, even on stage, I speak quickly. I talk fast. That's just how I am. One of the things that I've learned, and I'm continuing to get better at and practice at it still, 20 years on, is just to pause and be quiet before you answer or before you respond to somebody's answer. It's actually something that I've learned and developed as a coach. And I've gotten better because of that. Because what happens is if we don't pause, usually what we're responding to is not their answer. It's what we want to say. Like, we're asking a question, again, not really listening to their answer and saying, well, I'm going to say this anyways. When you learn to pause, you actually give your brain a second to say, hey, they just said something that is relevant, and I need to respond to that. Or they might say something where you don't have to respond right away, but I call dropping a pin in it. One of the things I've always been relatively good at in my sales career, and I try to teach this to the people I train and coach, is that whether you do it mentally or even just write down some notes, as you're having a conversation, people will give you all the information you need to work with them and to influence them if you pay attention. They'll tell you what's important. They'll tell you what they value. They tell you what their fears are and how to get past those. And pausing lets you actually listen to their answer and decide upon the best thing to say next. That is super, super valuable. And people respond to it really well, actually. They don't go, why is this person taking so long? They go, wow, I'm feeling listened to. And that's huge. And that actually gets then to the last tip. I have no idea what number we're on right now. 7, I think 7. Well, we'll go with 7. And that is a very simple 2-word sentence that can really start to create an empathetic connection between you and the people you're engaged with and are trying to influence. I understand. Different ways of saying it. I get that. That makes sense. I see where you're coming from, but I understand. And the reason why is because there's such a fundamental, thanks, Adam. There's such a fundamental need among humans to be understood. And if you even think about, again, it's not a business thing, just like on a personal level, how much the people that we are connected to, our friends, our family, they want us to get them. They want to be heard and understood. Like, we go to therapy sometimes because we want somebody whose job it is to pay attention and to get us. Even more than trying to fix it, it's just like, I want somebody to understand my perspective and my point of view and validate that. So I understand can be massively powerful. Now, first of all, you truly have to understand. Like, if they say something that you don't get at all, don't say, oh, I understand. But we actually can understand, because the human experience isn't that wildly different from person to person. We get fear, we get challenges, we get hopes, dreams. And so, for example, even if somebody goes, hey, I'd like to work with you. I just don't have the budget for it right now. Oh, I totally get it, right? Notice I'm not saying, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to try to sell this to you anymore. I'm just going to walk away. But I know what it's like to want to buy something and not be able to afford it. So I get it. Like, hey, I understand that human emotion that you're going through. It has such a powerful effect because, again, people feel heard. If you want to build true empathy with somebody, what happens is, or the way to do that is make them feel heard. Because if they do, then they will listen to you and they will take your advice. I joke. This is a joke. Somebody I say is a joke, but it's absolutely true. I've had people call me a great conversationalist, and I didn't say a damn thing, like the whole conversation. This woman, I swear, we had a 30-minute conversation. I probably said 2 sentences the whole time, but she felt heard. She felt like I was paying attention to her. She's like, David, you're such a great conversationalist. I really enjoyed this time. It was a networking coffee. And obviously that person, if there's an opportunity for her to help me, probably more likely to do that because we've built that bond. And again, we're not trying to manipulate people, but if you don't have that foundation, you can't go anywhere with it. So those are 7 ways that you can actually build your empathetic connection with a prospect or a customer, or really anybody you're trying to influence. By the way, if you're stuck with a family member, a spouse, right now during quarantine, try this. Try to build an empathetic connection with them right now, today. You probably haven't already, but we're 4 weeks into this. It's a little nutty. Tempers are getting a little frayed. Patience a little shorter. So sit down and try to, again, create that empathy. See the world from their point of view. Even I said, if it's your wife, your husband, your spouse, it can be really valuable. And obviously, why I want to go through this now is because it's so important. It is important right now. I don't mean to take away based on how we started with the power and the importance of empathy right now. It is. And more than that, though, it's always been important. It will always be important. Think about this. If you don't need to build empathy with your clients and you're trying to sell, we don't need you. And by we, I mean whoever your organization is. If I can just have this be a transaction, I'm going to get technology to do it. But at least up to this point, technology hasn't been able to replace our ability to connect on an empathetic level. And so that's super powerful. So thank you to everybody for sticking around today, making some time out of their schedule. Again, we're going to come back at you every day this week, 11:30 Central Time. If you have any questions, need anything else from me, feel free to reach out afterwards, connect with me, ask me any questions. Tomorrow, as I said, we are going to, I have this, I don't have my fun ticker, Shelter with Empathy. Heather, that's exactly right. That's the goal, Shelter with Empathy right now, which, as I said, after a couple of weeks of hanging around with the same people, it can be tough. It's a good way to remind ourselves to start that connection with people. I have a lot more content about building empathy and the sales process on my blog, davidjpfisher.com/blog. We have literally hundreds of articles on how to become a better salesperson, use all these tools available to us, and become a better sales Sherpa. Also, if you are a small business owner, if you are a solopreneur, freelancer, we run the Selling Launchpad. It is a coaching group for small business owners, solopreneurs, freelancers. We have 2 calls every month. The next one's actually this Thursday morning. We are opening it up to the community of freelancers and solopreneurs and small business owners at no charge. If you'd like to join us, please send me an email. Would love to give you some support and some training and some coaching and just, again, some community during this time, because it's stressful and it's not going to get less stressful in the near future. And also, if you know any organizations who would like a webinar for their team that's now working from home, or if it's an association that would like to do something for its members, I am doing webinars. In fact, I got to jump off right now and do a webinar on sales, LinkedIn, empathy building, networking, using video in the sales process. I've been doing webinars for a couple of years now, got a good handle around it. So would love to talk to anybody about how we can still help their teams. So please, if you know anybody you can introduce me to, that would help me out a ton. I would appreciate it. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, stay inside unless you really need to go out. And if you do go out, make sure you say thank you to the grocery store workers, to the delivery drivers, to the postmen and postwomen out there, everybody who's helping to keep things moving forward. And of course, if you know anybody or run across anybody in the healthcare profession right now, thank them for being on the front line and helping us take care of this nasty situation that we're in. And also be safe. I said be safe. Be patient, be kind, take care of one another. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.